a big reason we love college football is because of the upset. And I think going to an 18-team Big Ten, no divisions, 4 different football cultures coming in out west, I think we are prime, and I think we are ripe for some really good upsets. Now, these are not 5 upsets that I'm predicting to happen. These are not the top 5 probability in upsets that I think will happen. I'm just saying, I look throughout the schedule. These are 5 upsets that I could see really shaping the Big Ten season. So these teams, upset alert. Let's get right into it. And let's start first with week number 3, this Notre Dame-Purdue game. It's a rivalry renewed, and it's a very interesting matchup for me because let's start first with the Purdue Boilermakers. Okay, they're going to kick things off with a home game against Indiana State. Okay, Indiana State, they're not a Dakota. They're not a Montana school, right? They're not at the top of the FCS. Okay, so Purdue, they're going to be able to roll the ball out there. They're going to be able to roll the helmets out there and win this football game handily. After that game against Indiana State, the Purdue Boilermakers have a bye before playing the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So you put that all together, what does it mean? It means Ryan Walters and his coaching staff and his players, they've probably been preparing for this Notre Dame game ever since the beginning of the offseason, ever since we go into spring, ever since we go into fall camp. They've had their eyes on this game. It's at Ross-Ade Stadium in West Lafayette, Indiana. Now you look at the other side. You take a peek at the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. What's game number 1? Where is College Game Day going to be the very first week of the season? Kyle Field in College Station, Texas, where the Notre Dame Fighting Irish take on the SEC's Aggies of Texas A&M. That is a tough week 1 game for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now, they come out of that game, they play the Northern Illinois Huskies, so I think they're able to, even if they do fall into that one, they'd be able to get back on the winning track against that one. But Purdue's just sitting there lying in the weeds. They're able to watch that week 1 contest against Texas A&M and really take in what Notre Dame is, because Notre Dame wants to be that college football playoff team. When you look at Notre Dame's schedule, I feel like this is a game that they almost need to win right off the bat in College Station. So they might reveal more on film than they would like to reveal because this is a good Texas A&M team and they got to be ready to go in week number 1 for Marcus Freeman and the Fighting Irish to make the college football playoff, because there's a few other games on this schedule, games like USC, games like Florida State. That certainly won't be easy for the Irish. Now, it is a pretty manageable schedule for them to get to the college football playoff, but I feel that they're going to put a lot of effort into winning that football game and to put a lot of chips on the table in that week 1 game against Texas A&M and Purdue. Man, they're just going to be able to kind of sit back, watch, and learn about what Notre Dame is all about. And then Purdue, they're not going to put a lot on film, certainly, against that Indiana State. They're going to try to keep things a mystery for Notre Dame in that week 3 matchup as well. Let's fast forward to week number 8. I got 2 matchups in week number 8 where I've got teams on upset alert. Now, I'm going to start this Nebraska-Indiana game from the Nebraska perspective. We all know about that Colorado game. Second game of the year for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. We all know the hype that's coming into that. We talked about the train when talking about Purdue. The hype train is going to be coming in from Boulder, Colorado, and whoever wins this game between the Huskers and the Buffaloes, they're going to be getting on that hype train and they're going to be riding it themselves. Whether it's Nebraska or Colorado, a lot of media attention is going to be focused on the winner of that game in week number 2. Now, I believe Nebraska is a more complete team. I believe Nebraska is just a better football team. It's at home in a night atmosphere. This one should go the way of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And then you look at the momentum that can be created from Nebraska finally getting off the schneid against their out-of-conference rival in the Colorado Buffalo. You look at what they have coming off of that. Home game against Northern Iowa. They have a home game against Illinois. They go to Purdue, home against Rutgers, right? The maybe more difficult games, 3 out of 4, Illinois and Rutgers, are at home during that stretch. If they're able to beat Colorado, Nebraska should be a 6-0 football team. But you know what they would be a couple of weeks from now? They'd be going to Columbus, Ohio to take on the Ohio State Buckeyes. They got to go to Bloomington the week before they go to Columbus. It's a classic look-ahead spot. Everybody telling Nebraska, hey, you're finally bowl eligible once again. You are just, Dylan Raiola is probably great. He's receiving a lot of national praise at this point in time. Everybody's saying how great the Nebraska Cornhuskers are. And now all of a sudden, before you play Ohio State, you take on a team that can sling the football. Curt Cignetti's Indiana Hoosiers are going to be able to sling the football around the yard. Say his name and he appears. I believe in Curt Cignetti. I love what this program is putting on paper right now. And then if you look at this early season schedule for the Indiana Hoosiers, it's not just Nebraska that's going to be able to come in with a lot of momentum and a lot of confidence. It's also these Indiana Hoosiers. I think they're 4-2 at the worst. I really do. Now, their non-conference slate is very manageable. And then you look at those 3 conference games before they play the Nebraska Cornhuskers. They go to the Rose Bowl to take on UCLA, home game against Maryland, at Northwestern in that smaller stadium as well. Yeah, they could lose all 3. Just what they've put on this roster and just Curt Cignetti and his past being able to win at every step of the way. And not only that, but being able to win and win right away. I think it's 4-2 at the worst. I think this is a team with a lot of confidence, right? Curt Cignetti is a guy that oozes moxie and confidence. I think they're going to be able to come into this game with a above 500 record. They could be 5-1. They could also be 6-0. Imagine Nebraska and Indiana both 6-0 the week before Nebraska goes to Columbus to take on the Ohio State Buckeyes as well in that game. We mentioned Indiana, their ability to throw the football around. I think that could possibly create some mismatches. If this offensive line for the Hoosiers can give Curtis Rourke time, you spread all these receivers across the formation. The Donovan McCulleys, the E.J. Williams as well. You look at the Miles and Miles, Price and Cross transferring in. And, of course, you can't forget Elijah Surratt. This is a team. Okay, if there's defenses in the Big Ten, not saying this is Nebraska, but if there's defenses in the Big Ten that struggle against the pass, Indiana's going to give them some problems. Okay, Nebraska's got a lot of fourth-year guys. They've got a lot of fifth-year guys back there. How talented are they going to be? We're going to find out a lot about Nebraska against the pass early in the season. We know Shadur Sanders in Colorado, they're going to want to throw it around. Curt Cignetti and this group of receivers, they're going to want to throw the football around as well. A classic look-ahead trap spot right before Ohio State, possibly for the undefeated Nebraska Cornhuskers. I'm going to stay in week number 8. Now, USC and Maryland, these could be, not saying it will be, but these could be two teams kind of with different first halves to the season. Let's start first with the Maryland Terrapins. They would be the host in College Park for this particular matchup. I think kind of like a lot with Indiana that we were just talking about. I think Maryland is 4-2 at worst. I really do. Their early season schedule is favorable. Villanova, Virginia, and UConn in a non-conference game as well. And then you look at USC on the other hand. They got to play some really good football teams, and they could possibly be beaten up pretty good. They play some physical football teams as well before they match up against the Maryland Terrapins. Of course, USC has that season opener against the LSU Tigers, but check these 3 games before they go all the way across the country to College Park, Maryland. They got to go to Michigan in their Big Ten opener. There's no more classic Big Ten, bring your lunch pail, physical type of football team than the defending champs, the Michigan Wolverines. And then you got to go to Minnesota the first Saturday in October. That's a team with a really good offensive line, one of the best running backs in the Big Ten. We know P.J. Fleck plays a physical brand of football. And then home against Penn State, a team with maybe one of the best running back duos in all of college football. Those are 3 very physical teams. We talk about the question, ever since 2 years ago when it was announced that USC and UCLA were going to come to the Big Ten. Can USC match with the physicality of the Big Ten? We're going to find out. We're going to find out. Let's fast forward to week number 9 and talk about the Penn State Nittany Lions going to the Wisconsin Badgers. These are just two gut feelings that I have about these two football teams entering the season. You know, a lot of people are picking Penn State, right? They only have to play Ohio State this year. They don't have to play Michigan out of the teams that they have not been able to beat during the divisional era. Okay, so a lot of people are just chalking up 11-1. They're going to go right into the college football playoff. I would say not so fast quite yet with all of that. You got two new coordinators coming in. My gut tells me that this is not going to be an 11-1 football team. My gut tells me that Penn State is once again a 10-2 football team. So where does that upset come in? USC on the road, and then this Wisconsin game on the road are certainly candidates for that upset, to upset the Penn State Nittany Lions as well. And then I look at it from Wisconsin's perspective, right? The ultimate season as far as the Wisconsin season ticket holder is concerned, because there are some fantastic football games. My gut is telling me I don't think they go 0-3 in their big home games this year. Their three big home games, which is Alabama, of course, in the beginning of the season. You got this Penn State game, and then you got Oregon. I think Oregon and Alabama I think there's just more talent on those teams than there is the Wisconsin Badgers. I think there's bits and pieces of this game, especially if this is a night game. And I think this is a good candidate that this is going to be a Big Ten Saturday night game on NBC. I think that brings just a whole nother level to this matchup. Penn State gets a bye before they go to Wisconsin. So you could say, hey, they're going to be ready for the Badgers, but they might be peeking around the corner because they have a bye. They have at USC, they have a bye. They have at Wisconsin, and then they have Ohio State after the Wisconsin game. So maybe during that bye, they're doing a little bit too much preparation on the Buckeyes. They're feeling the pressure that, hey, we got to beat one of these teams that we haven't really been able to beat since 2016. Maybe they're looking too far ahead and maybe focusing a little bit too much on Ohio State, and maybe they should be focusing a little bit more on the Wisconsin Badgers. I'm going to go to my last upset, and this might be the biggest upset, at least maybe in some people's eyes as well. I want to talk about the UCLA Bruins hosting the Iowa Hawkeyes on a Friday night in Week 11 with UCLA. This is a UCLA team that has a lot of offensive firepower. Okay, when it comes to wide receivers, like if you power rank the top 3 receivers on every Big Ten team, UCLA would certainly be in the top 5. Okay, what they have coming back with J. Michael Sturdivant, Logan Loya in the slot, and then I love Rico Flores. Rico Flores was a highly recruited guy, had a really good freshman season at Notre Dame. I think he's going to be able to come into this UCLA offense with Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator, Ethan Garbers at quarterback. Okay, I know there was a revolving door. The NIL used to bring in Dante Moore, I think was a part of that because they wanted to see him get on the field. But when Ethan Garbers was given his chance and when he was healthy, he played some really good football. So now that he's the guy, and now that Deshaun Foster, Eric Bieniemy, and this program trusts in Ethan Garbers being the guy, I think that's going to give him a lot more confidence. Look, I think this offense is going to be pretty good. Now, the offensive line, little bit of a question, but I think that the offensive line is a little bit better than people think. Now, you're facing the Iowa Hawkeyes. This is one of the very best defensive programs in all of college football. There's a reason why Phil Parker won the Broyles Award as the top assistant coach in the country last season, because of what he's been able to build over a decade plus leading this defense in Iowa City. Now, I want to look at the situation from Iowa's perspective. Okay, I think Wisconsin, we just said it. I think Wisconsin's going to be pretty good. Now, the week before Iowa plays UCLA, Iowa will play their Heartland Trophy game against the Wisconsin Badgers. That's week 10. Now, the week before that, we just covered it. What if Wisconsin beats Penn State? They're coming off of a high. They're having a really good season so far. And then that makes Iowa-Wisconsin a really big game. And then if Iowa is able to win that game, hey, it's a rivalry game to begin with between the Hawkeyes and the Badgers. You're coming off of that. And then you got to go on the road, travel across the country on a Friday night, which could be a little bit of a sleepy atmosphere at the Rose Bowl out there as well. This is a team that can, in UCLA, This is a team that can move the football on offense. This is a team that Iowa hasn't really seen a team, I think, like UCLA throughout their Big Ten West schedules over the years. So it might be a little bit different. They got Washington earlier in the year as well, so they get a little bit of a peek maybe at that style of play as well. But UCLA, I think, is too good to be 3-9 or 4-8 or lose a majority of their Big Ten football games. I think that their offense is going to give some defenses within the Big Ten some trouble. And I just think the scheduling for Iowa, where they're at right now, this could be a Friday night game. Weird things happen on weeknight games, and this could be the spot for the Iowa Hawkeyes to possibly be upset.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.